every rehearsal, tripped up the stairs. So I've achieved something. Nick spoke a lot to you about innovation, about data, about collaboration. These are themes that I'm going to be talking about today. Anybody would think we actually talk to each other. Revolution. Revolution is in the air. Now, every revolution needs conspirators. In our particular revolution, those conspirators are the connected world in which we live and all of the data that's flowing from it, that we're expected to do things, and a change in raising in expectations about how we work with data, how we work with systems, how software should look, should feel, how it should help us. You don't have to do the chants at this stage, but if you want to, you can. More data, more integration, more innovation. I hear it all of the time. I say it to my own staff. It's not going away. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I think Nick talked at the start about who knows where all their data is. Our personal devices, our servers in the cloud. Often when we go to try and find it, we don't know where it is. It's a real problem. Add to that, this raise in expectations. If you take that 1995 was the year that the internet became mainstream, came into our homes, it means there's a generation of people in the workplace right now who have never, ever known a world without it. Most of all, they'll just go into Google and expect to find whatever it is that they want to find very, very quickly. This has raised expectations about how our software should work. People are used to an app-based culture now, and are demanding that type of interface, that type of beautiful and elegant UI in all of their systems, not just on the ones they carry in their pockets or on their tablets. I talked about this deluge of data. Every second in the world, 50 terabytes of data is created. That's a lot. We have DVDs, just to give you some sort of context. That's 1,000 DVDs of data being created in the world every second. Don't know how long I've been talking about it. That's quite a lot of DVDs. You stack those end to end over the course of a day, you'd have a stack that was the same height as 4 Eiffel Towers stacked end to end. And unbelievably, it's estimated that 90% of that data is unstructured. We don't really know a way around it. And even in our own world, that sets us a bit of a challenge. How do we embrace all of this data? Because our strapline is from data to decisions, and we found by the introduction of things like Horizons that actually looking at data in different ways, visualizing data, has enabled us to make better decisions. And the more data that flows our way, the more opportunity there is, if we can look at it in the correct way, if we can make it work for us, to make better decisions. So what do we sort of have at our disposal to meet this challenge? Well, the first thing is focus. Yotta is a business that is 100% focused on infrastructure asset management. We don't do anything else. All of our staff are focused on achieving things for you to ensure that in this particular marketplace, we deliver insight and value for money. We have systems. I mentioned Horizons a second ago. One of the elements that Horizons brings is data visualization. This is key going forward. If we look at the trillions of points of data that we might capture on a scanner survey, for instance, actually looking at that in its rawest format is bewildering. Nobody can understand it. But if you use visualization correctly, you can actually make that data come alive to every person in the audience, and decisions can be made on a more value for money basis and in a better way. If we look at Mayrise, another one of our tools, it brings operational functionality into highways, street lighting, waste, street works, and grounds. Hundreds of people every single day in local authorities are using that product to maintain the assets that the general public takes for granted. It itself is creating enormous amount of data. But as we look forward, and as this connected world starts to connect up all of our assets, we have to look at things in a slightly more holistic way. We need to think about things like structures. that we currently don't manage within our products. We need to think about waste and enhancing that with things like route optimization to ensure that our assets that are out on the networks and the highways are actually, again, being efficient. And we need to think about drainage. I think we all sense that there's more water around at the moment, and if we don't look after our drainage assets, that's going to have a very significant effect on all of our other assets too. And so looking at the way in which those asset classes work together and the holistic way we believe that we need to address this, we talk about something called multi-asset modeling. Now, right now, with Horizons, it provides incredibly deep functionality to provide assistance for asset management on pavements. But a pavement is only one of the things that the people in this room and the rest of our customers and the industry manage. And actually, pavement tends to have quite an interrelation and connectivity with lots of other asset types. So whether it be structures or lighting, arboreal, grounds, they all are interlinked together. And in those links are tremendous opportunities for insight. As the sensors that are appearing on every single one of those asset types now provide data to each other and to us, we can make better decisions. If your drainage systems aren't good enough, you're going to be spending a lot more on your pavement over time. And that money, that pot of money, eventually, it all comes from the same pot. So why not address that pot of money and spend it correctly across the asset classes? Gaining insights into this area is hugely, hugely important to us and hugely important to help us provide efficiencies for you, the money that you spend across all of your assets, not just in pavement. You've heard about this thing, I'm sure, the Internet of Things and sensors. Well, here we are as our mountaineer again, and he's heard of this Internet of Things thing too, and he wonders how he can address it. God, that was almost planned. Did you see the way that worked? That was beautiful, wasn't it? By the end of 2018, there's going to be 20 billion sensors in the world, in all of the assets that we manage. Not talking directly to us, but talking to themselves and to systems that we have. All of that data that I talked about, that tidal wave, that deluge of data that we will have an opportunity to manage, much of it is going to come from these things. There are going to be 3 times as many sensors as there are people. And we started off, most of us have seen that we have sensors on the top of a street lamp. But those sensors themselves can now contain many more devices, measuring pollution, noise, looking at temperature, looking at weather patterns to help us plan forward as to how weather might help, or possibly not help, degrade our assets over time. There's tremendous, tremendous opportunity. But if you can't embrace that data, if you can't make it work for you, it's all a bit of a waste. So what do we have at our disposal? We have Mayrise. It's one of the most widely used systems of its type in the UK. It's been under our stewardship for about 3.5 years, and we've learned a lot over those 3.5 years about what it does for our customers. And we have Horizons, strategic asset management tool and data visualization tool that we introduced 4.5 years ago. Somebody who I greatly respect in the industry told me when I showed it to him for the first time that, oh, it's lovely, but nobody will buy it. It's going to bring too much change into an industry that doesn't want change. Well, I'm really pleased that in this particular case, he was wrong. People have embraced this, and it's helped you change the way you go about managing the spend on your pavement assets. But whilst Mayrise is hugely broad in terms of its functionality, developed over 25 years, it does pretty much everything that most people want it to do. We have Horizons, that incredibly deep functionality from a data visualization perspective and strategic asset management, but just in pavements. And so as we look to the future, as we understand how is it that we can embrace this connected world and help you make better decisions, what do? Well, we could put them together. And this is something that people have said to me. I've met people as I've gone around the customer base. Why don't you put these two things together? It'd be a really good idea. And they're right. So we started to work on something. And the product marketing told me, you need a name. You've got to have a name. So we sat down with one of the leading brand agencies in the UK, and we sat in quite a lot of conference rooms and drank lots of coffee. And they were very earnest about the values that this name had to extol. Lots of coffee, and they came up with this. You see where it's going? Now, the laughter is probably embarrassed laughter, and you're probably thinking I might not have got value for money in this particular engagement. Just my little joke that there was no brand company. But the idea of putting our products together to build upon the experience and the knowledge that you've helped us bring to those products is entirely valid. Why would we throw it all away to embrace a revolution? So it starts to get a little more difficult for our climber, because we have to try to do something new. We have to do something which is going to ensure that all of your investment in us as a business and our products is safe for the next 20 years. And so we did start our journey. Our little mountaineer has been going on for nearly 2 years now. And we wanted to bring something to you, our customers, and to the marketplace that would protect you, that would help you seize upon the opportunities that the revolution is going to bring you. And I've been so looking forward to this moment. I just want to sort of gaze upon you all for the moment. I've been so looking forward to this moment, because I'd like to introduce you to Alloy. And Alloy is our new platform. Alloy is the thing that we have been working on incredibly hard, whilst maintaining everything else that we have to do. We've recruited well ahead of the curve to ensure that our commitments to you for our other products are maintained. But we know if we don't seize upon this revolution right now, if we don't give you the tools to embrace it, you'll come to me in 5, 10 years' time and say, sorry, it's just not good enough. You just didn't do enough. Now, unfortunately for me, I just get to do the prelude. The actual cool stuff, as ever, gets given to somebody else to do. And so I want to invite Manish, our CTO, who's going to show you some more of this. Okay? I'll be back. Thanks.
Well, good morning, everyone. So what Nick's told us is that we have already great products that manage a number of different assets, both strategically and operationally. And yeah, this is great, and we can continue to build on these platforms. But what we've actually seen is that technology is moving incredibly fast, and that pace is just ever increasing. And I could, of course, stand up here and just tell you about those technological changes, and indeed I have done at previous conferences. But I think what's more interesting than talking about it is actually showing you. So hopefully you guys are ready to see Alloy. So what you're seeing right now is not a holding slide. That is the actual login screen for the application. And hopefully you can see that it's like no other login screen you've seen, and that's a bar we've set across the entire bit of software. Alloy's been built specifically for the web, and it's built for all modern browsers, and it means that there's no plugins or anything required. The software itself has these video backdrops that are catered towards the specific types of assets that you might be managing. So it will learn the types of things that you're managing according to the software, and then the videos would adjust to the background. Let's log in and take a look at this. Obviously, they always say don't work with children, animals, and live demonstrations, but I say, what the hell, let's have a go. So I'm just going to log in here. And the first thing you see is a beautiful map in the center, and we'll come back to this again. On your left-hand side, you can see the dashboard. Now, the dashboard is made up of a number of cards, and essentially each card is for a specific module. Those cards are essentially there to be able to give you key bits of information. Now, asset management is becoming more and more about performance management. We've all got our targets, we've got our KPIs, and we all need to be able to report on these instantaneously. So in a connected world, what we need to be able to do is report on those KPIs against real live data that's happening. And that's what these cards do. They go back to the data set in the background, and they be able to report back on those KPIs. So you've always got those numbers at your fingertips. Now, if I switch over to the right-hand side, you can see we've got a menu panel here. First up, we've got base maps. Now, base maps provide that backdrop to your data. There are times when the data does all the talking, and you don't really need anything interesting in the background. There's other times where you want to be able to change that to provide some context. We often get asked about adding ordnance survey type backdrops to the data so that you can find the context of your data. So we've added, obviously, the light, the dark, my personal favorite. But if we go down here to ordnance survey and zoom in, you can see that you can get all that richness of detail directly in the map. Now, base maps are great because, yes, they provide this context, but there's always a specific base map you might want for a specific bit of data. We could, of course, try to just keep adding different types of base maps for every possible data set that we can think of, but a better way to do this is just to allow you to be able to add the ones that are most interesting for your organization. So we've made this super easy. All you simply have to do is click on this button to add a new base map and paste in a URL that you have from any kind of WMS service. So with data becoming more and more open and accessible, people are publishing these links, and you simply have to just get access to that. Often you need developers to come in and start hooking that into your software, but we've made it so easy, and I'm about to demonstrate how we do that. So what I've got here, so we've got an organization here that publishes WMS services. They've actually got some really beautiful maps, like these watercolor style things. And what the hell, let's try and have a use of that one. So I'm going to grab this, which is their WMS service, and I'll just copy that link. I'll then add a new base map, give it a name, paste in the link, hit done, and that map is added. I can now view a stylized map of the UK that quickly. If you didn't believe, if maybe you thought that was a trick, I'll take another one. This one's provided by the British Soil Society, which I'm sure we've got many members here today. So we'll take a look at, and we'll just go in here, and I'll paste that link in. And this is actually quite an interesting type of map where it provides the different soil types that we have within the UK. And you can be able to use that data. So you can just imagine the possibilities here. Somebody else in your organization publishes a WMS service. You, within about 30 seconds, have it loaded up within Alloy, and you can start using it. I mean, how cool is that? It's just absolutely amazing. So yeah, base maps, brilliant. Let's switch back to the standard Skyward map so we can get a really good look at the network. Have a look at the network type. Many thanks to Essex for allowing us to use some of their data here. So next up, we've got networks. Now, networks, as you'll all know, for asset management are a really critical part of doing good asset management, right? If you're doing a specific asset, you need the right network. So for our streetworks people, it will be a gazetteer. For our pavement people, it will be a PMS network. For others, internationally, there may be polygons, there may be lines, safety barriers, drainage. All of these will have a different network system. If we want to do this thing about connecting these assets together and doing holistic asset management, the whole fence-to-fence idea that we've all dreamed about, then what we have to be able to do is, one, support all of these different networks within a single application. And secondly, we have to be able to move interchangeably from one network to the other. So Allo provides all of that capability, everything from the NSG to just your standard polygon. So if we've got, here we're showing the NSG network, and we'll give a bit more detail here. You can also just click on and create a polygon network. And this is something I just drew within Google Maps, loaded it into the application, and I can now use that as a network. Why would we want to use polygons? Well, there are times when you're managing your arboreal assets and your trees and grounds that actually having a linear network just doesn't make sense. Trees need to be registered to the park because that's where they belong. As I was saying, internationally, they actually mark their defects onto 100-meter polygons to actually define where the lane is and do the registration that way. So there's lots of different systems out there, and in a connected world, we need to be able to show all of that information. So this is actually the room we're in today, which is the Palace room. And over here next door is the Hilton, where we'll be having some lunch later in the Prince's room. Something to look forward to. Right, so we've got the networks. We've got the networks within the system. Let's jump back to the Essex network. What about actually having a look at some data in there? So here we've got layers, and we've made this beautifully clean so that you can see all the layers, because this is where all your data comes together, right? You've got maybe some street lights in there, you've got jobs out there, maybe you have your structures, whatever it may be. You want to make sure that this part of the interface is, because it's going to be used so often, is as clean and simple as possible. And that's what we've tried to do. If you do want more details about any one of these assets, all you have to do in terms of the layers is click on there. You get an immediate breakdown in terms of the types of styles and things that are used in order to represent it. And we've actually gone to the next step in terms of development beyond what we were able to do with Horizons just a few years ago, in that now we can actually draw all of this directly into the browser. And this means that if you want to change a style, you simply click on it, pick a new color, something bright, hit save, and it instantly changes on the map. You're not waiting around for something to regenerate out on the servers. And this is really because technology has continued to move on, and we can now do so much more. And I've got so much more to show you. So let's leave this in green because we don't want to mess around with the designer's styles. But as we zoom in, let's open up some street lights in here. So you can see the street lights are shown as lines in terms of representing the sections where we may have street lights. As we zoom in, we start to get more and more detail, and these clusters pop up. The clusters, as you zoom in, you get more and more detail about them. We've now got 5 street lights. They pop out into individual ones, and we can start to interact with them. So one thing I haven't said about this interface is that it works seamlessly on a touch device, and it's actually a real delight to be able to use. So I can just pinch and zoom directly in the map. If I click with my fat fingers into a specific area where there's lots of assets, I can then get a breakdown of everything that's underneath that hit area, and I can then hone down my selection result as a subsequent process. But clicking on any one of these assets and having a look at it in more detail, you immediately get a breakdown of like the top level information. If you've got any images, those can also be displayed in that information panel. As you scroll down, and each of these parameters that you have can be specifically styled according to what your organization needs to highlight, or a specific way you want to be able to show this information. So in this case, what we've done is we've got some risk output for street lighting. They do what's called a TR22 analysis and identify the street lights that are at risk. And you can take that risk measure and actually turn it into an infographic. You can take data that's being loaded in and represent it as a chart or as an image. And this is a really powerful way of you being able to deliver and not be limited simply by the interface itself. If there's a specific widget that you want to have in there to be able to display your data, then we're able to provide that, and you can get the view that's really catered towards you. And that really means that you've got an enterprise strength application here that's user specific. So it's got all the power that you need. Now, obviously, streetlights, the great thing about the streetlight asset in Mayrise is that it's not just one level. And this is true of many assets, right? Street lights are not special in that case. We need to go, if we're going to be doing asset management holistically, to a more componentized model. You have to be able to represent the separate components that make up a specific asset and deal with each one of those independently. So what we've provided is an additional view that takes you off of the map. Simply by clicking on the icon for the structure, it pulls up the structure itself, and then you can navigate. So here we've got the structural information. We can get information about the controller, a bracket, a lantern, what type of lamp is in there. All of that information can be provided. And these structures are unique to that specific asset. If instead I say I pick up Belisha beacons and I click on that and get that breakdown, that may have a much more complex structure. Now imagine this structure for a bridge. Imagine this structure for a drainage asset. You've now got the capability of being able to manage all of the separate components, each one with its own life cycle, its own replacement strategy, all of those things in a simple single application. And if you want details about a specific asset, you can just click on that component and you can get that information out. I mean, how cool is that? It looks absolutely beautiful, and we're really proud of the work that's gone into this. And don't worry, we haven't left the pavement guys out either. If you click on a road surface, you've got that same structural idea here. Now, people are always asking for this. Oh, Manish, why don't we have separate layers and we can maintain the layers separately? Wouldn't that be brilliant? Well, there you go. You've got now your surface layer. You know the date that it was laid. You know the thickness that it was laid out. And if we go in there and we've replaced that, then this information can be changed automatically, right? We can put in the workflows and stuff that I'll talk about later to be able to manage these. Surface information, binder information, base course. This is, everything is in there. So if there's any of you out there that are, really into reading the ISO 55001 guidelines, I mean, this must be super exciting for you guys as much as it is for me. So, yeah, we really believe that this is going to change the way people look at their assets and be able to actually manage the amount of data that's captured against each specific asset. Right, so what we have got here, we've navigated the different parts of it, and we've looked at a bit of data. So yeah, okay, great, we can navigate, we can do all that. What about change management? How do we do those? If we wanted to edit a certain bit of information, let's grab this street light here. And let's say we've got a bit of information that we want to change on a lantern or on a bracket, let's say. The bracket doesn't seem to have any information against it. I just simply click edit, and I'll say the condition of this asset is good and fixing, I'm just going to put that as broken at the moment, and save that away. That edit gets automatically logged, obviously, against the asset itself. But normally, when you change things like this within an asset management application, those changes then are issued, and then that's it. What we do within Alloy is we store every single transaction that you've made. And so you're able to then go back, look over the history, and find out what the data looked like before. So when it was originally created, this is what it looked like. This stage, this is what it looks like. And so you can always figure out who made the change, what did they change, and if you want to revert back to an old version, you can simply click on that historical version and revert back out. So you've got really powerful capability there for being able to make changes within the application itself. Right, so we've seen how we can navigate all of our assets. We've seen how we can make some changes to them, and actually, everything is in there to be able to look around and manage the assets in that way. But how do we actually find the asset that we want to? Now, search changed a long time ago. Actually, probably more than a decade ago with, as Nick was saying, with the advent of the internet, and then Google came along. The way we find information today is very different from the way that I think when you pick up an application to do with asset management and start looking for stuff. Now, no offense to you guys who love your SQL queries out there, But I personally don't find the information I need to on a daily basis using specific queries. We've all got used to just typing in what we want to find and being able to find it. Now, this is actually quite challenging when you've got hundreds of thousands of assets, maybe millions of assets, each one of those with its own set of components. Each of those components with then potentially tens to hundreds of different attributes. So trying to search all of that information instantly is incredibly hard, but we've done it. So let's take a look at how that works. So the search capability here, what we can do is just type in anything that we're interested in, and it will search the entire database and to be able to find the results. And let's face it, it won't take a great deal of time either. So if I just type in, say, the name of a specific asset, and I know that I've got one somewhere in there called ZX01, then I can get some information immediately about it, and that takes a few seconds. And then I can click on it, find the streetlights that have that reference, and jump directly to it. If instead I want to, say, find a specific street, and let's say it's called High Street, then I can just type in that name, and almost as soon as I finish typing the name, it's found the location, it's found jobs that are on that street, it's found NSG references. All of that stuff is done absolutely instantaneously. I mean, this is amazing. This really changes the way that people are going to start looking for and identifying their assets and being able to manage them, because you can do it so quickly. So you've got that capability. You can search for those things. Maybe there's something that you remember putting in last week. It was to do with a part that was rusted. You could just enter that information, and you immediately get up a list of jobs with the word rusted in it somewhere, and it's done a match against all of that information. So, I mean, I really haven't seen anything like this in kind of a web-based application of this size with the amount of data that's in there. It really goes some ways towards solving this whole big data problem that we have within asset management. So that's super cool. So let's think about these things. So the way we've interacted with the application here is that we've seen that we can interact with it via the keyboard. Keyboards came around 1900s. Obviously, they took a few decades after that for them to appear against most of the mainframe computers. We also then had the advent of the mouse in the 1950s. The mouse came along. That took another few decades before we started seeing it against kind of PCs and household devices. Then there was the invention of touch. Touch has actually been around since the 1960s as well. That's taken nearly 50 years for us to be interacting with kind of touch-based devices. We now probably interact with our touch-based smartphones more than we do with the keyboard or mouse or anything else. So what's the next thing? Anybody want to shout out? Voice. Somebody said voice out there. And certainly that is the next thing, right? Voice is the way that people are interacting with their devices now. I've got Amazon Echo at home. Some people have Google Assistant. We've also got Siri that's been around. You know that there's about 20 billion search requests or just general requests made to Siri every week. 20 billion. This is going to change the way we interact with computers. And it's only right that we make that journey too. So let's take a look at how this works. With all of these applications, you need to have a keyword, like a trigger word, that starts it off. So for us, it's OK, Alloy. OK, Alloy. Show me streetlights. So we can do search requests as well. OK, Alloy. Search for High Street. So it listens to the command and does the voice recognition. And this is in the browser. Thank you, thank you. And this is all happening inside the browser, that you can actually search for this stuff. So if you wanted to find something like, or you wanted to turn on a specific layer, you can do that too. So if I turn off the streetlight layer, and I'll leave this open so you can see what happens. OK, Alloy. Show me jobs. And it'll turn on the jobs layer for you. Now, voice is one of those things that it seems a bit gimmicky right now, but this stuff is ever changing, right? I mean, we're getting to that stage now where we're going to be interacting with our machines. Artificial intelligence is becoming incredibly prevalent. There's been a huge boost over the last 5 years, and it is going to continue on that change. And it's time that we kind of get on board with it. And voice really comes into its own when you're doing some other activity. Maybe you're up doing a demonstration or something, and you want to be able to show some information to some other stakeholders in the room. You can do that through voice, and we really believe it's going to be a great kind of addition to the application in time when you can start saying, show me areas where there's flooding and we've also had damage, and being able to find those instantaneously just using your voice. So we're really excited about that, and I hope that you will be too. Okay, so we've had a look at being able to find data, edit data, have a look at all of the data in the system. What about if we want to be able to create some data? How do we go about doing that? We've really thought long and hard about how data gets into the system. And obviously for existing applications, you can export data out and there'll be some tools to be able to get them in. But if you just want to create things within the application, we wanted to make that really easy too. So let's have a look at how we would do that. Let's imagine we want to be able to add a street light. We'll have a quick look at where the street lights currently are. And we can turn that on. And yes, we've got a number, but there doesn't seem to be any in this area here. So what I can do is I can simply click on street lights, hit add unit, pick the type of light that I want to be able to add. I'll just pick a standard street light here, place it using the map. I now have a street light on the map which I can position. And it's auto-referencing to the section. No more worrying about which section is it closest to, if I'm closest to this section or this section. And you can just position it where you want to, add a unit number, 100, enter that in, done, that's it. What date was it installed? And the asset is added to the inventory, as easy as that. Now that's obviously just a basic structure. Maybe we don't know what lantern type or anything it is. So we can start adding that information as well. We can say, here are the key components of things that I can add onto it. And it knows about the structural kind of representation, what can be added. I'm not going to be able to add a bulb or lamp directly to the structure. I need to put it as part of a lantern. So how do I do this? So you'd have to say, right, okay, let's put in a lantern. And I add in the lantern. I won't enter any information for that. Just hit create. And then I'll add on to that. I'll add on a capacitor. Let's add on a lamp. And we can just continue to create a specific asset and once that's created, you can continue and clone that on to like multiple times. So you've got this capability of being able to create these potentially very complex structures really easily within the application. So what about other things that are not related to, in this case, streetlights? What if there's some work that needs to be done out on a specific light? You get the phone call in the office, oh, I'm on this street, I've got a problem with this specific street light. You can either add a defect to it through the defect system, but in this case, for the demonstration, simply for time reasons, we can use the create a job. I can then create a job on a specific thing. What's the issue? Maybe the light is broken. Find the stuff that has a broken in it, or maybe it's smashed. Find something like the lamp is smashed. Hit next, give it a title. Smashed lamp. Job status, I'll say, has been recorded. Priority 1 week. No caller info. They don't want to really store that. So I can now select which assets have the issue. If there's many lamps that have been smashed up, I can draw a target area on there. I mean, this is super cool. I mean, look how easy this thing is to be able to use. To be able to say, I've got 3 lamps that all have this same issue. Yes, include them. They all get included as part of the job. Hit next. I can add any bill items for things like the work that has to be done. If there's parts and I add that to the bill item, you can add in a whole workflow engine on the back end. So we've created this fantastic workflow engine that allows you to be able to customize what happens when a specific job is either created or completed. If it's a defect and a defect has an issue beyond a certain amount, it can trigger another process. You can get notifications. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And it goes back to this kind of mission of building an application that really is enterprise strength and user specific just for you. So once you've created that, we assign it to a specific gang, and that's it. And the job's created. And you get these kind of regions that are identified for specific work, and you can do all of the activities that you want to on a specific job. Go out there linking into the mobile software so that you can then issue that job to a specific group of people and get the work done. And then when you mark that as done, I'll probably get an email pop up in a second to be able to say that that work has been completed, all part of this workflow engine. So yeah, super cool. We've worked on the workflows as well to make sure that we have the ability to be able to, your day-to-day tasks are as efficient as possible within Alloy. So let's take a look at, obviously, reporting on some of this information. If you want to be able to report on them, the thing to do with reports is that these are also changing. I mean, reports have historically been things that maybe we generated using Crystal reports, and then we printed out to PDF and then handed these PDF things around. But with data that's coming in all the time and our assets are connected, by the time you've printed this thing out and handed it in, it's probably already out of date. We need to move to kind of a more paperless system where the reporting is potentially on a specific snapshot at a specific point in time, but not necessarily completely disconnected by having these paper forms. So in terms of the reporting, and in this case, streetlights, you can see that we've got a collection of reports here. You can choose the types of reports, summaries, and then generate the report to be able to get it. All of the reports we have are full HTML web pages. And this means that you can share them, they get cached in the same way, and they're built off of a snapshot of the data that you decide. So you pick a specific point in time, all the data gets aggregated up to that point, and you can generate the report. And the thing about web pages is they can be incredibly interactive. You can do all kinds of things on reporting, turning things on or off, beautiful charts. Anything that you can do in a web page, you can now do in a report. You're no longer limited by the fact that you're using Crystal reports or any, there are other reporting engines available as well. Okay, so that's it. So some of you in the audience at this stage are probably thinking, well, that's great, Manish. Thanks for that demonstration. But isn't what I've just shown you a re-implementation of everything that we've already got in Mayrise? Yes, we've fully kind of extended the componentization out to all assets. Yes, we've improved the workflows. Yes, we've added cool search functionality and voice recognition. But essentially, you can do all of this stuff in standard application, right? And to those people, I would say, man, you guys are a tough audience, really tough audience. But I'm about to show you something that I know has never been done before. And I don't think it's been in any application, because when we tried to do it, it was just super difficult. And my team said to me, it's not possible, we can't do that. And we wanted to put in something special for streetlights, okay? And whenever I think of streetlights, my mind always goes back to those NASA images that are captured from outer space. And they show, you can see the continents, you can see all of the major cities in there, and you get these really pretty pictures. Hopefully you know the ones I'm talking about. But they actually tell a story, right? I mean, obviously they tell a story about where the majority of our streetlights are. They tell a story potentially about maybe the type of light that they're using in those specific cities. They also tell a story about how wasteful we might be being with some of this energy, the fact that there's light pollution happening in these areas that we need to be able to address. So we thought, how can we utilize this type of visualization in a street lighting system? So we thought, well, let's try and put all of that together and see what we come up with. And we call it Nightscape. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch on the streetlights layer. And we've got a special visualization in here called Nightscape. I turn that on, and immediately you see a night-based image for all of the streetlights. Now, how cool is this? Now, you guys might be thinking, well, you could just grab a picture like that and put it on there. Let me explain to you what you're seeing right now. You're seeing a live picture from the data where every street light has reported its specific color temperature. That color temperature is then represented on the map. And it's also telling you about the type of illuminant, so whether it's an LED or a sodium, all of that information is in there. This slider guy at the bottom is also one of my favorite things within the application. When I click on this and kind of pull it along, you'll see the fact that you can tell when sunset happens and nighttime starts, and you can see when sunrise occurs. When I let go of it at a specific time, you can see at what the actual pattern, the profile of that lamp is doing at that specific point in time. So at 9 o'clock, most of the lights are on. If I switch now to, say, 1 o'clock in the morning, some of the lights, because they've got a dimming profile, it happens on my street, midnight comes and suddenly it's like completely black outside. So there are profiles being used. These guys here don't seem to be using any kind of dimming or trimming pattern. So this is cool from like this far out, right? We can see immediately all of these things. So we've got over 100,000 streetlights right now, and they're all being drawn in the browser almost as soon as I've clicked it. Let's kind of zoom into a specific area and get some more detail. You start to get a little bit more of an idea about where all of the streetlights are and the different types. The white kind of lines and dots representing the LED lights on the street. As I zoom in further, you can get closer information, and then finally I get into here, and now you start seeing a rendering of all of these streetlights. And what we're representing here is what mounting height is the lamp placed at? What type of illuminant is it? What shape does the light hit the ground at? So what type of spread function is there? All of this information, what's the angle, orientation of the actual streetlight? All of this information is being reported and actually displayed live. And you get these kind of visualizations, which are just amazing. I mean, I've never ever before seen kind of these types of visualization. This is all happening in a web browser. You can see the orientation of the streetlights, how they line a specific dual carriageway. You get an idea about residential streets and how the lamps are presented in those areas. So you really have that capability, and this time bar works equally well at this zoom level as it does when you're zoomed out. So yeah, that's Nightscape, and we really feel like this is a great visualization tool. This is specifically, obviously, for streetlights, but these kind of visualizations don't have to be limited to these assets. Maybe you want to be able to view your arboreal assets and be able to see when, specific bits of information about when you have to go out and trim the trees and do specific activities. And these custom visualizations for that are really going to be a powerful way of being able to share that information. So I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did making it. Thank you. So it was always like one of my big dreams to be able to do a kind of presentation like this. My mind always goes back to those great kind of Steve Jobs type, iPhone launches, and I thought, yeah, it'll be great. I'll get up on stage. There'll be cameras and there'll be projectors, and it'll be brilliant. Yeah, maybe I don't quite do that justice. Can't really pull off a polar neck anymore, so that's not one of the things I can do. But in the words of Steve Jobs, just one more thing. So let's take a look. So we've had a look at these assets, right? We've done all of this about great visualizations, but Nick talked about this whole IoT thing, about connected assets, and really that's not something I've shown you yet. So let's take a look at how we would do that. If we look around the room, there's a couple of lights on either side that don't appear to be working. So let's see if we can address that. Let's see if we can jump into the Hilton, and I'll turn on lights here so we can have a look at what's going on. We've got a couple of lights in there, coincidentally. Let's click on one of them. Have a look. Yeah, that looks like the right type of light to me. I can have a look at the breakdown. I can now have a look at the fact that which room it's in, maybe a bit of angle, etc. Down here, we have access to the sensor. So there's some sensor control in here. And what I want to do, looks like the power's turned off on it actually, so I'm just going to fix that. I'll save that away. And as if by magic, it comes on. While I'm here, let's just fix the other one. Nothing like asymmetric things to annoy me. And I'll edit that, up the power on that one, save that away, and up that light as well. All right, thank you. So that same part of the tough audience that I have is probably thinking now, yeah, but those are just in the room. That's a Philips Hue. I could do that in my house. And you're probably right, you can do it in your house, and you've got access to be able to do that. Whether you'd be able to control it from your own software, that's another issue. So let's do something a little bit more difficult. Let's try and control a light that's out in Norfolk. So we've got another network in here. So I'm just going to close this one off. And let's jump out to Enlight's offices out in Loddon. Now, Enlight is an IoT-based company, and we'll talk a little bit more about them as I do this. And they've kindly set up a lamp outside of their office, and they've got all the connected technology that you might want and need for asset management in a connected world. So we're going to click on that and get some information about it. We've got some information about the type of light, etc. We've got a breakdown as to what the actual light looks like. Down here, we've got a sensor. And we can have a look at the light right now as it is out there in front of their offices. And the light, guys, did you leave the light on? Oh, let's see if we can fix that. Shouldn't be leaving lights on at this time of day. So we're going to turn that off, save it, and keep your eye on the webcam. Within a few seconds, that will turn off. I mean, how cool is that? So you can really remote control all of those lights and assets directly from here. But it's not limited to kind of one-way based information where you're just relaying commands out to the devices. The devices can then also report information back in. So you have the ability to be able to get information from, say, a noise sensor. How many of us have been asked now within highways to potentially be mounting noise sensors to be able to measure that from the roads? You can mount these types of things and get reports back on it. If we look back on history, this is updating like every 15 minutes, and I can get information about what was the last sound level, whether it triggers an alert. All of that information can be captured. We've also got access to a nitrous oxide sensor, so we can look at pollutant levels and all of that within the network. It can be other kind of weather type sensors in there. Any sensor you can think of, you now got the ability to be able to add it to the specific asset or a building or whatever else and be able to monitor that, traffic flows, everything else. So yeah, big thank you to the Enlight guys for being able to help with that. Once the data's coming in, you can also build kind of graphical representation, see when it's triggered over a threshold. I mean, the possibilities are absolutely amazing. So yeah, I really hope you guys have enjoyed that, and that's really it for there. I'm going to try one last thing just for the fun of it, because I can while I'm up here. I won't get another chance to do this. And so I'll just try. OK, Alloy. OK, Alloy. No, doesn't want to listen to me right now. I did want to say bye-bye, and it does log you out when you do that. Bye-bye. I think we just got interference over the microphones at the moment, so I'll just log out in the more conventional way. If you don't want it to always listen to you, you can turn it off as well, so it's a good opportunity to tell you that. So you can log out there. Thank you. So if we just switch back to the presentation for a second. So obviously, I've shown you Alloy. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed that demonstration. Yeah, like I said, I've been looking forward to nearly 2 years to kind of show you the stuff that's been in the pipeline and about to come along. Needless to say, when Alloy does get released, you'll be completely seamless integration with mobile applications. You can already see there's some kind of synergies there between the design styles of the mobile applications that are already out in the field with the Alloy application, and those will fit together without any problems. So what have we seen? Alloy is all about kind of bringing this data together. It's a capability in terms of rich networks allow you to be able to fully provide that fence-to-fence management. You've got the ability to bring in lots of different network types and be able to seamlessly switch from one to the other and getting references for all of your assets. We've got really powerful search capability for the first time in these types of applications, moving away from SQL-based queries. I mean, obviously, for those of you who really love your SQL, we may find a way of putting that in specifically for you. But for now, we'll provide really strong search capability so that you can find things quickly and easily. We've added speech recognition. And yes, OK, it didn't work perfectly as part of the demonstration. But this really is the future in terms of how we're going to interact with our application. So I hope you're equally enthusiastic about the fact that this is happening and moving forward and embrace it. We've shown a level of componentization for assets, which provides a really kind of clear visualization of the data and allows you then to be able to do full-blown asset management in line with kind of ISO standards. The application is IoT ready, which means it can link in with all of these different sensors. We've got adapters there that allow you to be able to connect to different APIs for different sensors, allowing you to control them and get information back in real time. And so a special thank you again to the guys at Enlight for helping to put the demonstration together. I also showed the capability of adding these custom maps, which really isn't to be underestimated. Being able to link in these types of other data sets which are available either within your organization or outside your organization mean that you've now got the capability of being able to really bring all of your data together in one place, which maybe you didn't have before. And finally, this is all wrapped up in a really beautiful user interface. And we feel like this is really going to make it a joy to use. That you're going to become a little bit of the envy of the other people in the office. It's like, oh, why does he get to use, or why does she get to use Alloy, and I've got to use, this other software that's maybe not as fun to use. Yeah. So with that, what I want to say is, what I'm most excited about now that the presentation is done, is that this is just the beginning. It really is just the beginning. I mean, what I've shown you here is just kind of a glimpse as to all of the possibilities. We've still got loads of ideas that we want to explore. So we really do feel that the future is all about connected asset management, and that future is Alloy. Thanks very much, guys.
That's pretty awesome, I think. And I'd like to just confirm that despite what you may hear afterwards, I remained utterly calm in the speech recognition demonstration. So, as Manish said, this is a taste. It's a taste of what's to come. There's been a lot of work going into it so far, but there's obviously a lot more to do. So how do we move forward from here? What happens next? So in terms of availability of the product, the first two modules will become available to you in the summer of 2017. There'll be highways management and street lighting. In the subsequent 2 years, everything else that I've talked about and Manish has talked about will become available to you within Alloy. Between now and the release of the first modules, we'll provide you with a high-level roadmap that gives you some indication of when you can be preparing to embrace Alloy, should you choose to do so. And it's very interesting that what you've seen today, and going back to Simon's comments about our international audience, none of the issues that are facing us in this room are about just the UK. They're everywhere in the world. Every organisation that's trying to solve these issues is looking for very similar outcomes. And so Alloy will also be an international product. It will be available in various countries around the globe with local language support. But you're all here for a reason. You're all here because you are in some way invested in us, in our existing products. So what does this mean for you? Well, we're incredibly appreciative of that investment. We don't take it for granted. We do try and work. We might not get everything right all the time, but we do try and work to ensure that your experiences with Yotta and with our products are very positive. And we want to protect that investment that you've made in us and for your organisations. And so we'll be committing for a minimum of 5 years to continue the support and development of both Mayrise and Horizons. And we'll work with each customer to talk to them about their timescales, about what plans they might want to make. We don't want to hold a gun to anyone's head to say you must move to Alloy. We hope that you'll want to move to Alloy sooner rather than later to embrace the connected world and make better use of the data that's going to be coming your way. But no one's going to force you to do that. You won't see any change in terms of our support arrangements. We'll be trying to deliver the same service, not better, that we've always done. But you have to also understand that we are working behind the scenes to try and take you and ourselves forward and protect this investment going to the next 20 years. And I hope what you've seen today in Manish's presentation gives you some confidence that we're trying to think about the next steps. We don't want to get to the edge of a precipice and then just fall off because we didn't do things that are difficult or slightly expensive. Now, some of you may have bought software from us in the not too distant future, and you might be thinking, oh, blimey, more licenses, typical software company, always looking to sell us the next new thing. Well, I also want to say that we recognize that you've made that investment to us and that you've paid money into the support and maintenance pot over a number of years. So if you've bought software from us and you pay your support and maintenance, we will provide you without any further licensing charges, Alloy. So if you're a street lighting customer, you paid your support and maintenance, you're an ongoing customer with us, we won't charge you for the licenses for Alloy. You will get the equivalent licenses as part of your ongoing service. I think that's the right thing to do. You've put a lot into Yotta and to Mayrise before it, and we want to reflect that back at you. We want a long, happy relationship with all of you and all the others that couldn't come today, and that's the right thing to do. We hope, obviously, over time, that as the software is introduced and you get the chance to take the modules that you're using and move to an Alloy environment, that you'll choose to do that. And we'll be working with each customer to work out the best way that we can take your data, take your infrastructure, and move it into Alloy so that you can embrace that change. So I think very, very exciting times ahead. We were very excited to be here in front of you today to launch Alloy. It's actually slightly relieving too to be able to talk to you all in a non-sort of, whispered hushes and secrets. If it leaks out and you just get a dribble of information, you don't get all of the answers. And that's why we've kept it relatively discreet and that you get the chance to be the very, very first people in the world to have seen it. I hope that one day it will be so fantastic you'll tell your grandchildren that I was there when Alloy was done. I haven't quite got grandchildren yet, but my kids are really bored of hearing about it already, to be honest. So before I let you all go for lunch, and you'll have the ability to have another look at Alloy. There are demo stations set up in the lunch area, and ask any questions that you want to. I just wanted to share a couple of my own thoughts about why we're doing this. There'll be questions, I'm sure, that will say, well, why didn't you just augment Alloy and Horizons? We're lots of happy users and people like using those things. Why didn't you just stick a little bit of this on and stick a little bit of that on? The fact is, to do that is actually short-sighted, really. It doesn't actually provide us with the base technological infrastructures that we believe that we're going to need to provide you with insight and access to the connected world. Now, that's not a reflection on our products. Mayrise has hundreds and hundreds of users using it every single day. It's incredibly popular. There are people in this room, I have no doubt, that have used the product for 20 years, if not more. Over the last 3.5 years, we've seen very, very significant growth in the number of local authorities in the UK that are using Alloy. With Horizons, you helped us change the way the industry went about doing its strategic asset management for platforms. We have so many great use cases of the difference that Horizons has made. But as our little mountaineers determined to get to the top of that challenge, so are we. So doing something which we believe in is better for us and for you in the long term, despite the fact that it might be difficult, is exactly the right thing. And we won't shy away from that. And it's my personal view that the industry that serves you from a software perspective has been complacent for a long time. It hasn't delivered innovation. Horizons really was the first brand new innovative software to come out in probably 10 years. Now, people remain happy, but that doesn't mean to say that they remain prepared for what's to come. We won't shy away from doing something because it's difficult or because it takes more resources, because we absolutely want to make that journey with you. And to shy away from it would be the absolute antithesis of the culture that Yotta wants to have. And I'll go back to those brand values. That's just not what we want to be. We want to bring that innovation, that collaboration, right to your desktops. And I really hope that you'll make that journey with us. Thanks very much. Time for lunch.